Welcome to the Modern Homes Podcast with Rob Clemens.
And Frank Demick.
Yeah, man. Frank, what's up today, buddy?
Commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate. What, you've been doing some commercial? Or
I'm starting to dip my toes into it a little bit.
Dipping toes in. What's it look like dipping your toes into commercial?
It's different. It's different than residential.
It is different.
I've always been a client on the commercial side because I had some commercial properties up north.
Right. Well,
But
you
here,
had
not so much.
Now, you were a business owner up north. You owned a restaurant. Did you own that building as well?
did.
Tell me about that. Did you just go in on day one? You're like, we're going to buy a building?
No, actually, the ironic thing is my wife and I started as tenants. Our landlord, the owner of the building, actually had a lawsuit pending against his previous tenant to us, which he lost.
Oh, boy.
So came to us on bended knee. We were actually in a position where we could make a buy. We realized getting into the business, we should have purchased the land to begin with. So when we were primed for it. So we were able to buy, and then that's what helped me retire here. I say retire lightly.
Right.
I failed at that, but financially we were allowed to come down here and be okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because this show, obviously, spoiler alert, we're talking all about commercial and maybe investing, not just commercial, but I think you can tie them together in a sense because we meet a lot of people who say, I want to move to Myrtle Beach and I'm looking for some investment property. Yep. We hear that a lot. And you go, well, what do you mean? What are you looking for? And inevitably, I think commercial real estate does come up. And unfortunately, a lot of times it comes with a whole lot of checkpoints that are very difficult to do for reasonable price.
It's a different type of investing because you're looking at a different profit and loss statement. You're looking at different risk analysis, those kind of things. You're also looking at different approvals. We had briefly worked with someone who was thinking about opening up a medical establishment.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a lot of hurdles to be.
A lot of hurdles. I like it that you mentioned that. If you're thinking about buying some property, now, am I going to buy an existing building? Am I going to buy a lot and build with a company like Carolina Beige? We have a commercial building license. So with our GC license, we have the credentials to go build you an office building. But now you look at all those things that it entails. Do I have the right zoning for the kind of business I'm going to do?
First and foremost is zoning.
Oh, it's a huge one because you don't get over that hurdle first.
Huge.
Absolutely. Financing, what does that look like? What are the lenders looking for?
Local municipalities have different regulations.
Oh, absolutely.
So like you said, as far as environmental issues, runoff issues, they're huge.
Yeah, and we had, I was working on a project down on the south of here at one point, and we were thinking about, let's build a commercial building here. Yeah. And it goes as far as to say that the whole city had a plan, and they were saying, well, we really don't want these kinds of businesses in here. So it's not even just strictly about, you're thinking, well, it's commercially zoned for this kind. No, they didn't want certain kinds of business. And are you industrial versus commercial? So these are all things you have to think of.
And if you've ever been to a township hearing, a lot of times they've already predetermined what kind of businesses they will accept in there. Their way of not accepting is turning down your application.
Oh, well, right. Absolutely.
I've seen that
absolutely. So you're going to look at that. Tell me a little bit. Let's go back. I really enjoy hearing a real life perspective. So when you guys were decided to buy that building, which is a great investment. I mean, one thing we know with inflation and limited land opportunity, things are only going to go up in value. Yes. I mean, they might temporarily dip, but they will go back up, 2008 being a great case of that. So my question is at what point did you guys financially figure out this makes sense?
The minute... Probably a few months in the business.
Okay.
And kind of also as we were under construction because, you're remodeling somebody else's property to fit your business. It's kind of like you see these build outs in a shopping center. It's a restaurant.
Right.
You have to realize those people need to generate business because they're not making any income off the real estate. They do not own it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if you share they call it a CAM fee, everybody in that building, regardless if they use the dumpsters or not, are paying for that combination. Yeah. I mean, everybody has to pay a certain fee and a percent of business. Then you have the whole friends of mine have learned over time being a restaurant owner. You meet other restaurant owners, and you're like. You hear about their business they had in a mall per se, and then the mall not only has a CAM fee, but they have a percentage of your business.
Oh,
fee.
Yeah.
So think about it, during the Christmas season when malls are really busy, that restaurant's paying more of their profits away because there's a sliding curve. The more they make, the more they pay out.
Oh, yeah.
So when the months are lean, you're not paying as much up, but they make up. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's a lot of variables.
Well, I
not to say to not do it. It's very profitable if you're shrewd and you're committed to it. But I've talked a lot of people off the ledge of buying a bar or a restaurant because it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to be said for we don't want to. we don't want to ever tell anybody to buy or not to buy a property, but you have to be educated on what you're doing. And so you get in these situations where you go, it looks great. I had a client that was looking at building a building over in a local area. I don't want to get too deep into the exact specifications of it, but he gets all the way through the building process, goes into the building department to start looking at maybe getting permits. And he found a very, very small technicality, and sometimes you got to read really carefully, that said that you had to have so many parking spaces per office. And what he realized was, with the kind of building he was trying to do, he's trying to have 30 offices, which would have required 60 parking spaces. Well, guess what? He didn't have room for 60 parking spaces. So these are the kinds of things you look at. So you got to do a lot of homework, you got to do a lot of diligence. So
in metropolitan areas, that's where you see parking garages.
Oh yeah,
that's the only way they can do. They have to go up.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to go vertical. That's all they can do.
It's a tricky thing. How would you say that when you went to sell, did you sell your business and the commercial building at the same time,
or they were?
Okay, so you just sold the building.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing that I educate people a lot when they're in that environment or thinking about getting into that environment, you have to realize, especially with what I had, a restaurant, it was very idiosyncratic to what my wife and I wanted. There were foods that we like, things we liked. Just imagine yourself, our building sold for over $1 million.
Yep.
So let's say Rob Clemens wants to open up his own restaurant, Clemens Bistro, or Clemens Cafe, whatever you want to call it. And you are looking at my property, which was it was over 6,300 square feet. It was a big place. Nice. Do you want to do what Frank's idea was or what Rob's idea is?
Well, I mean, you're going to want to do what Rob's idea was.
Exactly right. It's your dream, not this guy's dream. Now, if you have an existing bar or a nightclub that has a following and you're looking to get out, that's a whole different scenario. You're buying an existing business and you're buying all that with it.
Man, you say something interesting here, and I've got to address this because we've all seen it. And I'm going to give you two sides of that coin you just mentioned. On one side of the coin, you have a failing business that's selling because they failed, and maybe sometimes, and we've all seen them. There's a restaurant and it fails and they sell, and then you get another restaurant and then it happens again, another restaurant, and you're going, man, somebody's not paying attention. How come we have our fourth restaurant in this thing in like 5 years?
That was my location where my wife and I did our building. There was 11 failed restaurants.
Really?
At least 11.
And you guys were the success.
Yeah.
What was it? What was your
One
secret?
was we took ownership of the building. So we realized, actually, that's one of the things when you said, when did you know it would have been smarter to buy? We realized, without giving too much away, the landlord was not very easy to work with or conducive to helping his clients grow, his tenants grow. So they were probably 50% of the failures.
Okay, got you. But there's something though, because there's a restaurant up on the north end here that, again, I can tell you off the air. I'm trying to get into too much details, but they're a restaurant on the north end, and they followed that. There were a bunch of failed restaurants, and I always look at it, I'm like, oh man, this is almost like put a red stamp on it. You don't want to. And they've had a very, very successful restaurant for the last probably 20 years. I feel like going back, and so it can be done. What did you guys do to make it work?
It's a lot of things. It's
like a whole other
complex question.
Yeah.
But I will say determination. As you know, I'm not somebody that's idle, so I'm constantly crafting, moving, shaping. My wife and I, it was a daily conversation as well, what we can do to change this, improve that, change this, because that's an ever-shifting business. We went through COVID, all those things. I mean, and we're unprecedented times, but think about it. I say COVID in unprecedented times, but in a restaurant or a bar or anything that opens like that to the public, every one of those unprecedented.
Yeah.
Because even if you open up another TGI Fridays, there's hundreds of them in the state of South Carolina alone probably. They're all different locations, all different staff, all different people, right? They have one thing in common. They have the same menu maybe or same things, but everything else is kind of unprecedented for that location.
Well, so I'm going to go there. I'm going to say this. You guys did something else, and you're kind of dancing around it, but I think this is the thing. You listen to your market. We're talking about investments today. We're talking about how to invest in commercial real estate or whatever. But the real deal is you can't go buy anything and not watch the trends, listen to what the people want. You told me about having, you kind of changed what you were going to do.
Changed our cuisine. Changed, oh my gosh, changed hours open. It just, from opening in 2011 to selling in 2022. The name of the restaurant was the same and we were the owners. There were certain dishes that maybe a handful of things that carried all the way through.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything else kind of, I would say 30% of our business was the same all the way through.
Right.
The other 70 was just shifted,
just
changed.
shifting and manipulating. Well, you're like a football coach. You know, you don't go into the game and you're getting just beat down by the defense and go, well, we're not going to change
My
anything.
favorite running back of all time was Walter Payton.
Yeah.
He didn't run every play.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right.
You can't.
Right.
You can't run that same play over and over.
You got to adapt to what
Slot
the market
right,
needs.
slot left,
Yeah,
straight
right.
down the middle. Like you either pass.
So what you're saying, you're like the Walter Payton of restaurant owners.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
High praise, though.
I will take it.
Yeah.
But I would gladly say I don't see myself ever doing that.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, look, you got to be committed, but this is something that we talk about. Sometimes you get out there and you have this grand idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to invest. I'm going to make $1 million, but you're not even watching the signs. You might even have the best location ever, fits your zoning and everything, and you still fail.
One of the best pieces of advice anybody has ever given me. There's a handful of things, but in that realm, somebody said to me, you can go into a library anywhere in this country and find a whole entire section or a bookstore of a whole cadre of books about business planning. Mm-hmm. But there's none on business execution.
right.
So you can plan as much as you want, but some of that, there's a couple things. Chance plays a role in it.
Yeah.
Acumen plays a role in it. Determination is probably what my wife and I had, because our acumen was not that strong in the beginning because we weren't restaurant people.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Stick to it. I wouldn't do what I did. I wouldn't jump into a business that you really don't know about, because that's a lot to learn.
I agree with that. And then let's throw in another thing. Again, the topic of today, we're talking about you're going to invest in something. And we're really talking about real estate and building, but we're talking about business. And, you know, you get into something preferably that you're passionate about, because when the times are tough, and they will be tough, future business owners of America, you're going to run into some tough times. If you're not passionate, you cannot get to a point where you're going to go through the hard times, because now it's just a grind.
And you know this too from starting a business from the ground up. When you should have enough capital to weather a startup.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it. A lot of people aren't prepared for that, and that's why they're going out of business a year later. Yeah. Even with the best business plan, they're going out of business. So I'm going to take you on the other side. I want to make sure we get through this show. I don't want to race through it. There's another side of that coin. So I just presented, at first I said, there's failing businesses. You decide to start a business within that. Now, you know, you're like following up the guy who did a terrible speech. You ever remember in school, some kid do a terrible like presentation. You're like, I want to go after them.
You got to go after him.
Right. Now, so you can't really go wrong in a sense. You can't do any worse than that. But then what about when you buy a business that's existing? And you just mentioned, I'm going to play off of yours. You know, I buy your restaurant, and it's Rob's Bistro, man. And so now I'm trying to change the vibe and make it my own. And that's another danger point. Like,
it's a very big danger point.
Do the people even want that? Back to what the customers want. Because I saw that happen recently around here, and the bar's not doing well.
Nope.
It was a bar and grill, and they are not doing well because they
all.
changed the menu. It's like, what are you doing, man? Yeah.
It's tough. Like, you know, as an investor, and we're talking about investment situations here. As an investor, you have to have a clear-cut mission, and you have to take a lot of time to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, fair enough.
I can honestly say that a lot of determination is probably my biggest skill set, and my wife and I both.
Yeah.
In our business succeeding was determination.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's like the core that drives.
Too stubborn to fail.
It's the core that drives everything else. Because of your determination, it's going to make you better at sales. Because of your determination, you're going to find a menu that people will like. And so if you don't have that, that's probably a bad trade anyway. All right, let's give a couple of hot tips.
Okay.
We are in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Okay, everybody comes here. They want to buy a property. They want to buy a business, and we'll get these kinds of requests. I want to be in Myrtle Beach, not too far south, not too far north.
Close to the beach.
Fairly close to the beach. Looking, and then we say, well, I found a property for you. It's $1.5 million. And they're like, so give me a hot tip. Somebody comes to the area, and they're trying to do this on a budget. Where do you think you would go with it? I have one in my head.
Well, two different things. Are they looking just for a sheer investment or a business?
Investment,
because I'm on the real estate side.
Yeah.
If I go investment, my first question is, are you going to utilize the property? Or are you just looking for an investment?
Okay.
That's a key question, because if you're buying an investment property here and you're new to investing, which I have some experience in, because along with my commercial property, I had a few residences that were rentals.
Yeah.
I never lived in them. So to me, long-term rentals, sure thing, steady income, predictable.
Okay.
easy to fill. Once you get through the screening a client, you're in. Costs do not fluctuate. If somebody's sheerly looking in for an investment and you will look at, like, I want to be on the ocean. Okay. How much are you comfortable with paying in an HOA? Are you okay with assessments? Are you okay with things fluctuating? Because an oceanfront condo will have more gross profits, but netting out sometimes is a little different. Advantage to that, you're renting short term, and then, hey, Rob wants to come down for a week from Wisconsin or wherever you're coming from. You stay at your place. You just block that week off.
Fair enough.
But, with the type of property I have now, I have somebody in there. I can't say, get out for a week. I want to stay in my
Well, there you go. Absolutely great point. Airbnb. I had a person on the Leader Mentality show with me at one point, made tons and tons of money. He built his empire off of Airbnb, believe it or not. And so that's a great point. Well, so you took it from the rental of property, maybe one thing you said, and I'm going to go into the business side. I'm going to go into, well, not the business side, into more like the commercial application. So one thing that you do have to talk about is, and I'm going to play off of what you said, are you going to occupy the building? Some people say, I want to buy a building for a space. Now, are you purely building it to rent it out to everybody, or are you going to occupy the building and rent out some of it? There is a owner-occupied building. You can get better chances of getting financing for that because of that. So that's something to think of. But I'm going to go very specific. We are located in Myrtle Beach. It's a very hot property, unless you want to come with a bag of money. Right? And I'm using the term figuratively. More than a $sign bag. Okay, I'm going to recommend a couple areas. One thing, I'd be looking at Loris, South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Loris is underrated. We have a industrial district out there. I think as more and more people are coming in
and developing quickly.
Well, it's developing quickly, and it's dedicated to that. And I think that we have a place called the Myrtle Beach Regional Economic Development Corporation. Their whole gig is to bring in businesses. So if you could get yourself in that area, the prices are still fairly low,
reasonable,
and there's going to be people who are moving in.
Call me.
Yeah, call Frank Dominic. Call Rob Clemens. I might want to build you a home. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, when you get out there, these people who are finding jobs there, they need to find homes there.
Sure.
Those people are finding homes there. They're going to buy from
some
restaurants.
Beautiful communities going up out there, and individual custom homes.
Yeah, so I would look at maybe build a commercial building or buy a commercial building and upfit there. Another place to look at, keep a good eye on Georgetown, South Carolina. South of some of the more expensive properties in Pawleys Island. Georgetown is a untapped area in this country. And I say that because they have some waterfront. So there is a port there where people can come in. Just a beautiful area.
It's
just
a
south
changing
of Pawleys.
landscape there with the paper mill going on.
We have a paper mill and a steel mill that were there, and they're both kind of being repurposed is what we're hearing. And so when you look at it, you see that become more of a residential district possibly. You see some buildings coming in. And here's another beautiful thing about Georgetown. It's got a historic district. A beautiful little boardwalk.
Absolutely does.
Have you been to the boardwalk down there? Beautiful place. And I got one other thing. It's pretty close to Monk's Corner, not Monk's Corner, Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is actually a little bit south of Charleston. So you're looking at a really, really great opportunity.
Another thing about that area, Georgetown specifically, and I've had clients from the Northeast region, and they feel an affinity for it because it feels like a New England town.
It really does.
It does. It's like a sleepy town.
If I put a blindfold on some of these people and said, just drove into the middle of Georgetown somewhere, or Conway is another one, you look around and go, I don't know where I am.
You definitely do not feel like you're in South Carolina.
Absolutely. So cool. So those are a couple of hot tips from Rob and Frank, and we hope everybody got some value off of it. But hey, look, back into the show. Frank, you have anything going on this week later on? Got some gigs playing? Anything
we
like
got
that?
some gigs coming on. We'll be around.
Good.
Carolina Crush, look for us on Facebook.
Well, and I said this on a previous show, Carolina Bays was nominated recently for Home Builder, Best Home Builder on the Beach. We also were nominated for Best Sunroom Contractor on the Beach. So, hey, vote Carolina Bays. We'd love to get that vote from you for the WMBF contest.
100%.
And otherwise, hey, let's keep going.
You got it.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for listening. Make sure to like and share us on your social media choice. And we'll catch you all next time on the Modern Homes Podcast. Rob and Frank.